And the gentleman from Minnesota, Mr. Ellison, is recognized for 60 minutes as the designee of the Majority Leader.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Here again, as we come in, week out, the progressive message up again as we come back every Thursday in order to make the progressive position clear on the critical issues. I'm going to be joined tonight by a number of colleagues who are making their way to the House floor, but tonight our topic is going to be the very critical issue of District of Columbia statehood. District of Columbia statehood, which is a vital and essential issue which has been dogging our country for many years. We certainly hope that this issue of D.C. statehood is an issue that the country focuses attention on. D.C. statehood is a question of giving rights and conferring rights upon Americans who pay their taxes, Americans who send their children to war, Americans who are equal in every way to Americans who live in the various states. And because of this important role that they play in our country, this equal role, we're looking forward to seeing legislation come out that will allow members of the District of Columbia, in order to be able to have a representative who can cast a vote in our Congress. We're looking forward to this look in the near future, and therefore, the gentleman yields back. And let me thank the gentleman for his quick message. Though not directly related to what we're talking about tonight, we're happy to yield to a colleague anytime, particularly in light of his very good message. But again, Keith Ellison here, coming today with the progressive message. The Congressional Progressive Caucus comes every week to make the point that there is a progressive vision for America, that we have a vision that is inclusive, that brings Americans of all colors, all cultures, all faiths together, and this progressive message is going to be heard and will be heard every week, week in and week out. This is the Progressive Caucus. We are here at the Progressive Message, and this is what that's about. And what I want to do without any further delay is to ask my good friend from the great state of Missouri to weigh in on this critical issue of D.C. statehood. Voting rights. D.C. voting rights, not statehood. My apologies. And so, Mr. Cleaver, Congressman from the great state of Missouri, how do you understand this critical issue of D.C. voting rights? And thank you for yielding back. The gentleman from Missouri made a very eloquent and clear statement. We're here with the progressive message tonight. We're talking about voting representation for the District of Columbia, and we've just been joined by a gentleman from the great state of Maryland who has been an able and very strong representative of many, many issues. And I'm just curious to know if the gentleman from Maryland, Mr. Elijah Cummings, former chair of the Congressional Black Caucus, leading member on the Committee for Oversight, has a view on this issue of a voting representative for the District of Columbia.
Gentleman yield.
Would the gentleman yield?
Of course.
What you're describing to me is kind of like pushing a cart in a grocery store when one of the wheels isn't really running right. The other three might be, but one of the wheels isn't being represented and holding up. And the cart just doesn't run smoothly. It almost sounds like you're saying that America is a better country and the values of the people are more accurately reflected when everyone has a vote here. I yield to the gentleman. Is that your opinion?
That's
yeah, well, the gentleman yield back?
Of course.
Well, you know, Congressman Cummings, you are you represent a district very close to the District of Columbia, and therefore you know people who live in the district, and you know people who work in the district, and I'm sure many of them are your friends, your colleagues, your constituents, people you've come to know on a personal basis over the time. What is their opinion? I mean, does the public want this, or is this just something the D.C. wants? What do the public opinion polls say? I mean, it looks like the Washington Post might have done some research on this issue. What, in your view, is the public opinion of giving Washington, D.C., a representative vote in the Congress.
I can tell you.
Well, I certainly thank the gentleman and do thank you for coming down here. Congressman Cummings sharing his views with what he knows personally about the will of the people of District of Columbia and the surrounding area, sharing his views about how children ask their parents about who's sticking up for me, who's speaking up for me, and unfortunately in the District of Columbia, parents have to say, well, we have a delegate who's really, really good, but she doesn't get to vote on stuff. And so I've just been joined by some other members of the Progressive Caucus. One was Congressman Barbara Lee, who is a member from the great state of California, and is also the chair of the Congressional Black Caucus. And we also happen to be graced with the presence of that very special delegate that we've all just been talking about, Congresswoman Eleanor Holmes Norton, who are here with us right now. And I think it's important to say that Congresswoman Eleanor Holmes Norton is not on her own here. She's not fighting the fight by herself. I'm all the way from Minnesota, and I feel passionately about the importance of the District of Columbia having a representative. And I look forward to seeing Eleanor Holmes Norton's vote up there on that board, counting equally with everybody else. But this is the position of the Progressive Caucus, that we believe firmly in the idea of equal representation. And yes, it is true that the Washington Post has done research on this issue, and it is the will of the American people for the District of Columbia to have a vote. And with that, I'd like to invite the gentlelady from the great state of California to weigh in on this topic of District of Columbia having a vote, standing equal with the rest of the country, being able to express an opinion. I yield to the gentlelady from California. Well, thank you for yielding back, gentlelady from California. Let me now recognize the person who we've all been building up to for a moment. Again, Congresswoman Eleanor Holmes Norton is not by herself on this. We are standing shoulder to shoulder with her. But there's also no doubt that she has been quarterbacking this issue. She's been spearheading this issue. No matter what kind of metaphor you want to use, she's been in the leadership of this issue and has offered tireless, unrelenting leadership. And so at this time, I just want to yield to the gentlelady to sort of lay out the issues for us on this critical issue of D.C. having a representative vote in Congress.